Hey team, I want to go over today's topic, which is extremely important, and that is what do you need to be thinking about in terms of a running-based training plan? I think a lot of athletes are far too impatient in the early stages of their buildup. And I think it's very, very important that you start paying attention to how long you're spending during your base training in order to really get in great shape. You cannot be in a rush when it comes to training for any distance, whether it's the mile or the marathon distance, all the way up to the marathon distance. You know, I've had many times over the years too where it took me anywhere from like 6 to 8 weeks to get in great aerobic based training. You know, I would start off, over in my marathon training, I would start off running in like the low 8s per 8-minute per mile pace, and then eventually getting in the 7s, eventually getting in the 6s, then in the 5s, then doing mile repeats under 5 minutes, doing 440s to 450s. So it's not something in terms of your base mileage, you want to rush. I talk about in other videos that it takes about 21 days to 4 weeks to adapt to any stress that you're placing on your body. So the base training phase, the base, spending that time running easy aerobic base mileage, not focusing on tempo runs, not doing, hard VO2 max workouts or speed workouts, just getting out the door and running easy, relaxed base aerobic mileage for a sufficient amount of time. Sometimes, a lot of athletes, when we take time off, we gain weight. I thoroughly enjoy my time off from training, but once I get back into training, I'm very, very serious about what I do. And that got me to a point where, I eventually broke running 220, under 220 for the marathon barrier. That was a very, very tough time to run. And for somebody that only had a small amount of, physiological talent, it took me several years to get to that point, but it didn't just happen immediately. And so the main reason why I wanted to make this video on, base training and in terms of base training for running training, is just to remind you all to be patient with what you're doing. Have a plan in place. There's a lot of resources on RunDreamAchieve.com from the training plans. I have monthly coaching now, utilizing the VDOT platform, which is very, very powerful in the fact that it can take your current race fitness and basically implement what paces you need to be running at: easy pace, marathon pace, threshold effort, and interval effort and race effort. And then as you get fitter, it adjusts to your current fitness level. So there's a lot of resources on RunDreamAchieve.com that I've built, and that's taken several years to build because I utilize what I've been taught myself by some of the world's top distance running coaches. And I think it's very, very important that you don't get sidetracked in your build-up. Don't rush and like I said, have a plan in place, know what you need to be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and plan your attack before you start just jumping into harder anaerobic workouts. The base training phase, like I said, it's very, very important, but it's also, you have to first crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run. So you don't just jump into sprinting. You don't just jump into doing tempo runs. And the tempo phase, and the base aerobic phase of training is absolutely essential, but I think it's just so critical, so important that you take your time, know that this is a process that even the best middle to long distance runners deal with. If you gain weight during your time off, it takes time to get back into great aerobic and anaerobic shape, and it takes time to burn those pounds or those kilos off. So even remind yourself of that fact, because if you're running with an additional 5 or 10 or 15 pounds on you, and you're trying to hit those paces per mile or paces per kilometer that you want immediately, know that if once you get that, you burn that fat off and you burn that unnecessary weight off, how much easier it's going to be. But also the fact that aerobic based training that you're putting in, where you're just focusing basically on easy, relaxed running with strides, 4 to 5 100-meter strides 2 to 3 times per week, like I talk about, like I teach in the running courses that I have it also in the training plans that I've created. you're implementing first, you're laying that strong foundation of aerobic based mileage, and then introducing those fast, quick acceleration drills where you're starting to introduce, you're reminding your legs of what you're planning them to do in the long run. But it's a process that cannot be rushed. And I know a lot of you probably are second guessing yourselves, or probably have had times in the past where you've dealt with questioning your abilities, and it's not that you don't have what it takes, it's not that you don't necessarily have the talent, and if you do or are lacking talent, then you just know and have the confidence that you can make it up with your work ethic. I'm an example of that. I started off as a high school freshman running the mile, the 1600 meter, in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I started running the 3200 meter as a freshman in high school, running in 11 minutes and 30 seconds for 3200 meters. Those types of times do not equate to a 2:19 marathon, or 14:18 for 5K, or 50:54 for 10 miles, or 1:07:06 for the half. You have to have a long-term approach. You have to be razor sharp focused in what you want. You're either in this all out, all in, or you're just kind of just lukewarm about it. And the bottom line is, you're not going to get great results unless you have an extreme amount of hunger and drive and motivation for what you're doing. You all have it. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be watching this video. The majority, a smaller percentage of athletes that watch these videos don't watch it the whole way through. They'll watch a few minutes and then they drop off. They'll find some other video that gives them interest, and the real athletes that are zeroed in will watch this from start to finish, because they want to know what it is the best middle to long distance runners are doing. And the best middle to long distance runners, and the athletes such as myself that had to work their tails off to get to the point where I could run the times I ran, is having a long-term approach, believing in delayed gratification, knowing that you're not going to get in great anaerobic or aerobic shape unless you first crawl before you start walking, and start walking before you start running. You have to have a plan, and a plan of attack, and know that, maintain a high amount of enthusiasm for what you're doing as well. The base training phase is absolutely essential, because again, you have to strengthen the musculature of the body, you have to strengthen ligaments, the tendons. So running that easy base mileage not only builds your endurance, you're burning fat, you're building confidence because you're out there running further. There's a lot of times where, even over the years in my own build-up, where I had numerous times where I would be running like a couple miles, I'd have to stop and walk for a few seconds. And then I'd start running again, I'd have to walk for a few seconds. Again, it takes time to build into that type of fitness. And so the reason why I'm saying this, and the reason why I'm making this video, is just as a reminder to all of you who are dealing with this, which I know some of you are. You're out there putting in the miles, but maybe you're frustrated that you can't run more than 3 miles without stopping, or maybe you're not hitting the mile splits that you wanted, or the kilometer splits per mile or per kilometer that you're aiming for. Maybe you went out and you ran a race and you didn't run the time you wanted. You may be just very early on in your in your build-up phase. You don't have that capacity quite yet, not yet, to clear lactic acid faster than it's building up. So you just have to allot more time and be a little bit more patient in your preparation, and just know that first you have to spend enough time building that foundational mileage first before you start focusing on doing the harder tempo runs and the speed training workouts and the hill repetitions, fartlek workouts, the varied pace long runs I talk about. That's not something that just happens immediately. You got to first learn how to do a 10 to 15 mile long run and not stop, or a 5 to 7 mile long run and not stop. And then as you get fitter and you become more confident in what you're doing, you become more anaerobically fit as well. You start running more of those miles or more of those kilometers during that long run at a faster pace, at a lower heart rate, and that will build your confidence. But none of that will happen unless you first focus on that base buildup. And that base buildup is important. It's not something you're running 2 to 3 weeks of easy base mileage may not be enough for a lot of runners. You might, for me personally, I need around 6 to 8 weeks of easy, relaxed mileage before I start really focusing in on speed training and very hard long runs. So I hope this video is helpful for you in terms of your base training and your base training build up. And I just want you all to know that you will succeed. It's just a matter of staying the course, staying committed to what you're doing. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section. Feel free to share this video, like this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that bell icon, the subscribe button, so when I make a new video, you'll be notified of it. And I hope this video is helpful for any of you who are dealing with frustration and starting to question your abilities in training. And just know that the best middle to long distance runners also have doubts at times. You know, it's tough to get in great anaerobic shape, but if you stay committed to what you're doing and you believe in what you want, and you're willing to put the consistent work in long enough, you're going to start hitting some big personal bests. So I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.